Well, a pleasant good morning to all you sports fans. You're on the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the Ball Father podcast presented by Sportskeeda. I'm Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL PR man and NFL observer, and I'm joined by my co-host every week, Mike Smith. Good morning, Coach. How are you, man?
I'm great, Reggie. Hey, another great NFL weekend, wasn't it?
I tell you what, I think, first of all, Coach, you're right. It was a great week, but I need to apologize to our fans. We missed last week because of some scheduling issues and my schedule. So I want to apologize to our fans. We're going to be back this week and working on getting sort of a more consistent schedule with our guys at Sportskeeda. But you're right, Coach. It was a great week. A lot of stuff. I'm a little riled up, Coach. You and I were talking off stage here because I kind of felt like some people, like you call them chronic complainers, were sort of beating up a little bit on guys who are playing real well and kind of making fun of the offense that they're running. And, my whole thing is, after working with you as long as we did in Atlanta, as long as it's working, we need to keep doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, there's nothing wrong with winning ugly, and ugly is different for different people, Hey, some people like blondes, some people like brunettes,
That's right.
It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we all want to have at least one more than our opponent. And when they do, most of the fans should be happy.
Yeah, last I checked, I don't think you get points. I don't think they give out points for, that was an ugly win and that wasn't a pretty win. I think at the end of the day, when they're starting to stack up teams for the tournament, they go, did you win? Did you win in week 1? Did you win in week 8? They just count them up. Don't they do that?
Absolutely. And that's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter what your statistics say. The most important one is the W's and the L's. And, I think there were some good examples this week of coaches, playing to, their strengths or playing to what they had to work with that week. And that's the big thing about, coaching in the NFL.
It changes every week based on your personnel, based on injuries, a whole bunch of factors. We're gonna get into a little bit of that towards the middle of the podcast, but I want to start out with some stuff that's kind of glaring right now, and it involves two teams in the bays. We got our Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are about 100 miles south of where I am here in lovely Ormond Beach, Florida, and they've just kind of collapsed. I mean, they've fallen apart. They started the season, with 2 big wins, beat the Cowboys in Dallas the first week of the season. And then, but they also started the season, Coach, with some controversy with regards to the quarterback disappeared for 11 days. We're all wondering, what happened? Where is he? What's he doing? But we kind of think, now that mystery kind of got solved this week. We kind of know where he was, kind of figured out where he was. And again, no disrespect to Tom, but, everybody who's gone through that whole divorce thing with the marriage, it's tough. I mean, it's a tough thing. But the bottom line is this. The Bucs aren't playing well. The Bucs aren't playing well on offense. They're not playing well on defense. I mean, hell, Warren Sapp, their Pro Football Hall of Fame defensive tackle, who I worked with when I was there in the early 1990s, basically said that Devin White should take the C off his jersey because he's playing so bad. Talk to me a little bit. Talk to me a little bit, Mike, about what you see in Tampa Bay, and they've lost 3 in a row, and they're 3-5. Although there's a little bit of a silver lining in that. Even though they're 3-5, they're tied for second in the division. Because the division's so weak, they still got a chance. Why do you think they're playing so bad right now?
Well, let's just say this, Reggie. They are probably the biggest surprise in the league right now. But the NFC South isn't very good. It really, it sucks. It's not good right now. They're not very many good teams in that division right now. And, we've already discussed in previous times the personal drama that's been going on in the headlines with the quarterback. But let's be frank, and honest. This is as bad as the Bucs have played and looked since Brady joined the team. Let's just look at the last 3 games. 2 of the last 3 games, the losses were to teams that only had 1 win when they played. 2 weeks ago against the Steelers, who struggled through the first 8 games. Then they lose to Carolina. Carolina had fired their coach. And they're getting rid of. It's a fire sale going on in Carolina right now. To help their draft stock in the future. And then last week, on Sunday, they lose to the Ravens. Ravens are a good team, but look at what they did. They gave up 453 yards, 231 on the ground. Now, good defenses don't give up 231 on the ground. Obviously, they're out of sync. They've only scored 43 points in the last 3 weeks. That's less than just over two touchdowns a game. What they've done on offense that stands out to me, they were 2 out of 13 on third downs against the Panthers versus the Ravens. They were 4 out of 13. Something's not right, and their stout defense that, has helped them the last 2 years with pairing it with Brady. They're missing in action. I mean, they're in my head. They gave up 173 yards to the Panthers. Their best player wasn't wearing the uniform with the Panthers. He was, guess what? He's with the 49ers now. I know we'll talk about him later, but if they can't get it turned around in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But let's say one positive. You got to leave it on a positive. I'm a positive guy.
Absolutely.
They are right in the thick of things in the NFC South because it's not very good. Somebody's got to win the division, and they're in line to do it. But it's a mess there right now. But they got a chance to turn it around, and they're just one game, I think, out of first place right now.
They're one game out of first. The Falcons are leading the division. They're 4-4, and so they got a chance. They got a chance. Let's switch space. Let's go a little bit north to the frozen tundra. Talk about the Green Bay Packers, who everybody's talking about, what's going on with them. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers, he's out of sync. He's missing Devontae Adams, who didn't play so well over the weekend, but has had some good games at his new home in Las Vegas. But they've lost, their last 4 games, and that's tough. So what's going on with where Aaron Rodgers and that team? And I mean, I don't think they've lost 4 games since Coach LaFleur's been there.
That is true, and I don't know if they've done it in the time that Rodgers has been the starting quarterback. But let's be real now. They're 3-5, and really they've lost 4 in a row. They're 4 games behind the Minnesota Vikings. Not only that, they are in the loss column. They've already lost 1 head-to-head. Right. So that really makes them 4.5. And coming up, this week, if they don't win this week, it's really a problem because they got the Lions. But then the following 3 weeks, they got the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Eagles over the next month. You talk about murder's row, and this is tough. And they've struggled on both sides of the football. It's well documented that they don't have any receivers, and Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball to himself. There's no way that they can do that. Then they're not playing with a lot of confidence. 2 weeks ago, they lost to Washington when they were playing their backup quarterback. They jumped out to a 14-3 lead, and it was just a defensive score. One of the touchdowns, they end up losing 23-14. Something's not gelling right now in Green Bay. Look at some of the other things. They were 0 for 7 versus the Commodores on third down. They only ran 47 snaps. 47 snaps. That's, probably what you run in about two and a half quarters.
Right.
And then look what they did. I mean, they kind of tried to change the script against Buffalo. Buffalo's a good team. Buffalo didn't play as well as they've been playing, but they ran the ball 31 times. Wow. How about that? Rodgers only threw for 203, and they ran for 208. They were going to try to change the script and do it running the football because they don't have any receivers. They're gutted before the season, trading Devontae Adams. They've also had some injuries there, so they're struggling there.
They lost another guy. They lost number 9, the young guy, early in that game, so they really are hurt. Mike, let me ask you this: as a head coach who's been through that, who's been on a team that's had a little bit of a rough patch, what do you tell the coaches? But more importantly, in your coaches meetings when you guys are getting ready to go install the game plan, what do you tell the players? How do you get the players to snap out of that whole 2-game, 3-game losing streak to come back? How do you do that?
Well, Reggie, there's a key to being successful in the NFL, and the biggest thing is not losing back-to-back games.
Right. Yeah.
there's so much parity in the NFL, especially this year. So you try to always tell the guys is, look, we don't need to have a 2-game losing streak. If we can go the whole season and never lose back-to-back games come December, we're going to be in the thick of the race. But when you put a 3-game or a 4-game losing streak together, you got no chance. And if you put 3 2-game losing streaks, you probably don't have a chance either. So, you got to change what's going on. And you as a coach, you've got to look and turn over every rock and try to figure it out. And each week it's a different puzzle because of the team you're playing, because of the team that you're playing with, who's healthy, who's not. And I think you've seen this past week, and they changed the script. The Packers changed the script. Who would have thought they would have tried to rush the ball 30 times?
Really did.
Not have Aaron Rodgers running his pass happy offense.
Right.
But they thought it was the best way, and they were close, but they just didn't get it done. And it's just not Aaron Rodgers in the offense either, Reg. The defense isn't playing very well. Joe Barry's been under a lot of pressure. There's stuff coming out of the locker room that you don't like, and that's what happens when you have 3 and 4 losing streaks.
Joe's a good dude.
The players start talking.
Right. Joe's a good dude. He's a good coach. It's funny you mentioned that. I was watching the game on Sunday night. I mean, you're seeing him more than you're seeing LaFleur, because he's, after every series, he's over there coaching and talking to guys, coaching it up. It's been tough. It's been really tough. Hopefully they can get it going.
Yeah. The old Bay of Pigs game with it. If they happen to be on the schedule this year, it might be a Bay of Pigs game. Right. Using the old terminology, because both teams are struggling right now. But there's lots of football still to be played in the NFL.
You're right, and that's the good part. That's the good part. They both got a chance to turn around. Although, that with that schedule you just mentioned for Green Bay, hey, stranger things have happened, I believe. You're on with Coach Smith and Reggie Roberts on the PR Man and the Coach Talking Ball on the Ball for All podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite guys here in a little bit right now, talking about my man King Henry in Tennessee. He was unbelievable this weekend. But you go back to it. The Titans at the beginning of the year looked like a lost team. They dropped the first 2 games by a combined score of 62-27, and it looked like it was going to be a long, difficult season in the Music City. But you know what? 5 weeks later, Titans have won 5 in a row. Derrick Henry's balling. Tennessee's defense is balling. And Henry's dominance was on full display on Sunday in that 17-10 win over the Texans. The score is a little bit not indicative of how well that guy played. But you see that guy on Sunday? He was unbelievable. I mean, I know the Texans aren't very good, but to run for 200 yards, Coach, what do you think, man? That's pretty good.
Oh, it's impressive. And I think he has the Texans numbers. I can't remember exactly how. I think it's 3 times or 4 times now that he's
4 times.
4 times that he's run for 200 plus on the Texans. So they'd like to play the Texans every week. And I think it was a great job, coach, and give the ball to your stud, give the ball to the guy that can run. And hey, you had a rookie quarterback that only went out there and threw the ball 10 times.
Right.
That's adjusting as a coach.
Right.
Hey, starting quarterback's hurt. He's out with a foot injury. Got a rookie starting. You can run the football against the Texans, and boy did they run it. And Derrick Henry, he looks like a man among boys when he's hot, and when they're able to block everybody at the line of scrimmage and he gets to the second level. Hang on, because there's not many guys in the National Football League that play the defensive back position that want to go after Derrick Henry. He's super.
He's unbelievable. And the one thing that you mentioned this earlier, you alluded to it earlier, about a coach making some adjustments based on the personnel that he had this week. You're right. Tannehill's out with a foot injury. So what does Vrabel, who reminds me a little bit of you with regards to how he coaches, defensive coach, likes to run the football like we did in Atlanta. But he gave it to a guy who had he tied the NFL record for for the most. I think the stat was the most. He's now got 6 career 200-yard games, which tied O.J. Simpson and Adrian Peterson, 2 guys who could pretty much run the rock. Tied them for the most career 200-yard games with 6. Don't you, when you see a guy like that, doesn't that make you want to kind of get out of your cabin and come coach some more, coach?
Oh gosh, it reminds me a little bit of our first year in Atlanta, where we went into it saying, hey, if we rush the ball a minimum of 25 times, we're going to win. If we give Michael Turner 25 carries, we're going to win. And, Matt was a rookie at that time, Matt Ryan, and, we wanted to protect him a little bit with the run game. And that was our goal, was to try to go out and run the ball 20 to 25 times and not put it on the quarterback. And, I think Mike Vrabel's doing a great job, and he reminds me in some of his game planning how it changes like Bill Belichick will do. You don't get style points in the National Football League. It doesn't matter how you win. At the end of the season, they're not going to remember that they only threw it 10 times against the Houston Texans if the Nashville team, the Titans, are playing in the playoffs. They're not even going to remember it. It's a win. You move on. And, this week they may have to change completely, especially if Tannehill's back. They may stack the box. And they're playing the Chiefs this week. So I anticipate they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than 10 times to hang with Patrick Mahomes in that offense. It's going to be different. And that's the great thing about the NFL. Every week is a whole different dynamic. And that's why it's the most popular sport in all of sports.
Not even close.
Not even close.
It'll be a tough task for the Titans this week because it's the Chiefs, as you know, coming off their bye week. So they're rested and they'll be ready, and they're playing. And I think they're playing in Arrowhead, so that's always tough. Tough.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Andy's ever lost a game, or maybe he's only lost one in his whole career coming off. It's something like that.
Ridiculous.
Out of this world. And hey, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator there with the Chiefs, I will guarantee you one thing: he's going to make sure that they don't beat them running the football. There's going to be some guys lined up close to the line of scrimmage to make sure that they're in an 8-man front, and they're not going to give Derrick Henry an opportunity to run north and south. Because, like I said earlier, when he runs north and south, he gets those pads going. Those DBs don't want to tackle him. I don't blame them.
Shit, they don't want to tackle him.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, let's move on. We're going to move on a little bit because we're at PR Man and the Coach talking ball on the Ball for the podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, I just got to tell you, we're talking about this earlier before we came on, but I was a little pissed off about how the analysts from ESPN were talking about Jalen Hurts after their win on Sunday against the who they beat? Who they play Sunday? I forget who they beat.
Pittsburgh.
They beat. They would come back from commercial, and I was walking around. I got back. They were talking about some triple option, talking chip blocks, and fullbacks and service academies. They were saying, that's So Hasselbeck was talking about talking about the Eagles offense, and it really sounded like he was dissing Jalen Hurts. And then I stopped and I said, wait a minute, aren't the Eagles 7-0? They're 7-0, aren't they?
They are 7-0, and I think they're the only team that has a 0 in the loss column.
I think they do. They're the only team that has a 0 in the loss column. So I think let's start there. Okay. Yeah. I think they're off to 7-0 start. If they win this week, they'll be 8-0. And it'll be the first time in the franchise's history that they go to 8-0. And I think they got a good chance. I think they got the Texans this week. I think they're playing the Texans this week.
They're going to run the football. They'll be talking more that it's the old triple option. No, hey, the Titans didn't run the triple option. Look, the Texans can't stop anybody run the football. I promise you, the Eagles are going to run. They're going to run the football, and they're going to run it until they can get stopped. And as soon as they get stopped, then they'll do something different. I can guarantee you that this week.
That's going to happen. So, so they're talking about the triple option. They even mentioned your good friend Paul Johnson saying Paul Johnson might be calling the plays. I'm gonna just tell you. I'm gonna tell you. I don't give a damn if they run in the wing tee and they're playing with leather down helmets. Whatever they're doing, it's working, and nobody stopped. Nobody stopped. So let me ask you this, Coach. Just look at it. Just look at Hurts' numbers just for a second, okay? So far this season, he's passed for 1,799 yards, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and has a QB rating of 105.1. On Sunday, he threw for a career best 4 TD passes, completed 19 of 28 passes, 285 yards, no interceptions. He's won his last 10 starts. A.J. Brown's playing like a man possessed up there with wide receiver. Check this stat out. The Eagles have not trailed in the second half this season. You know how many times Jalen's turned the ball over? I think you know how many times he's turned the ball over this year.
2.
Twice. Turned the ball over twice.
2. Yeah.
2 times. Turn it off, which is the second fewest through 7 games in the Super Bowl era. And here's my favorite stat. We talk about this all the time. My favorite stat. They've turned it over twice, but they forced 16 takeaways. That gives them a plus 14 in the give-take chart, which is tied for first in the NFL. I think what they're doing, how they're doing it, is a recipe for winning. So, Coach, let me ask you: triple option, leather helmets. What do you think about this kid, Jalen Hurts, and how Coach Sirianni is basically molded his offense to the personnel that he has?
Well, that's what good coaches do. They look at what they have on their roster and they try to play to the strengths of them. Now, I don't know where they came up with the Paul Johnson comment, because Hurts only had 2 rushes in the ball game. And how many touchdown passes did he throw?
He had 4.
4. Okay. I guarantee if it was a triple option team with the service academies, they might go a season and a half without having 4 touchdown passes. So I don't know where that came from. They do run RPOs, which a lot of people in the NFL, it's the run pass option. Yeah, it's the run pass option. They're getting it confused. In the triple option, there wasn't no pass option. It was the fullback was going to carry it, the quarterback's going to carry it, or the pitch man's going to get it. So, the RPO is very prevalent across the league with some of the younger quarterbacks and not the true drop back style quarterbacks. So I don't know, but they're playing as good as anybody right now, and they're undefeated. It shows that, and of all the teams in the league, they're playing with confidence. Good coaches play to the strength of their team. Let's not try to put a round peg into a square hole or a square peg into a round hole. Play to your strengths. I think they've done a great job, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with when it comes to the playoffs. If they keep playing and they stay healthy, they're going to be right in the thick of things, and are going to be a team that has a chance to go all the way and get a Super Bowl win.
It's interesting, Coach. One of my writers who I work with on Sportskeeda, did a profile on one of the Eagles players that ran on the site last week, and we were talking about the player was talking about the Eagles locker room, how cohesive it is. Talking about how guys like A.J. Brown and some of the team leaders on that team sort of police what's going on. Police, we're all coming in to watch film today on our off day at 10 o'clock. The DBs have a guy in their room. The running backs have a guy in the room that keeps that room accountable. Coach, talk about how important those rooms are, especially when you're winning and when you're losing. Talk about how important those to have a guy in those rooms to kind of keep everybody going, especially even when it's going good. How important that is for the cohesiveness in the team.
Reggie, I don't believe you can have one guy being the leader of the team. And I think the really good teams that I've been on, as you mentioned, they have a leader in each room, and that was one of the things that I think that we had in Atlanta. In the defensive line room, we had Jonathan Babineau. We had Tony Gonzalez. We had Roddy White.
Right. Yeah.
You had Matt in the quarterback room. Mike Peterson. Mike Pete playing. In the linebacker room. So when you have that leadership, it isn't one person that's leading. It's a group of men that are like-minded and that are going to police their little area. And when they police their area and they do it right and you win a few games, then it just continues to mushroom, and you see that every year. They all talk about the teams that are 7-0 this time of the year, or 6-2. Man, we got a great locker room. Well, it's not because of the head coach. It's not because of one player. It's because there's a group of men that are like-minded and that are going to do whatever they have to make sure that the secret sauce that they're putting on the food right now, which is working, continues to work.
Right.
And, that's what makes the difference. It's not one person. It's not one player. It's not one coach. It's a team. And that's the thing about being in the NFL. It's all about playing as a team and forgetting about your individual wants and needs and do what's best for the team. And obviously that's what they're doing right now in Philadelphia.
And it's working. And it's working big time. It's working big time.
No doubt.
You're on with Reggie Robertson, Coach Smith, PR man, and the coach talking ball on the Ball Father podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, you see, I got a little pep in my step, Coach. You kind of know why.
Oh yeah, I know why. I know why. Yeah, they did it. They did it. They did it this week.
Home State got things going down in the Voodoo Dome over the weekend. It's funny. Kamara's kind of. It's kind of been kind of quiet, hadn't really done much of that whole offense. Obviously, now that Sean Payton's not there and Drew Brees isn't there, the whole offense kind of runs through him. So he kind of got going. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns, had a receiving touchdown. Defense kind of showed up for the first time this season. The Saints blanked the Raiders 24-0. So it was interesting. They improved 3-5. They're just out of first place by one game behind the Falcons, who lead the division at 4-4. Said Dennis Allen after the win, Coach, I think this is the type of team that we're capable of being. It's a big win for us. We got a little bit of momentum, and so I felt good about the way our guys played. Kamara was a little bit more pointed in what he had to say, saying, I think we got our swag. I think our swagger is on its way back. But you know what? Swag ain't shit if it's not consistent. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get ready for next week. Let's see if we can put two good games together. Coach, let me ask you this. When we talk about leaders in the room, when you got your stars talking about, hey, we hadn't played Saints football, a guy like Kamara who's an impact guy who can score from anywhere on the field on offense. He can score it running. He can score it catching it. When your leaders are talking like that, doesn't that bode well for what's going on for the rest of the season for them if they can kind of get it together from an offensive and defensive standpoint?
Yeah, it does. And if they can put together a couple 2-game or a 3-game winning streak, they can be right back in the mix. They're in the mix right now because its division is so bad, as we've already said. It's wide open, but you need to play with confidence. And some guys like to do it quietly. Some guys like to do it, with their voice. Because they want to bring everybody along with them. And, Alvin Kamara had a great game. Their offense sparked, with Andy Dalton at the quarterback. If they get the receiver back, Thomas, he's going to be a guy that's going to be reckoned with. They've got to get Michael Thomas back. He's missed a number of games this year. I think he's missed 5 games.
He's missed 5.
Yeah, he's a stud. You got to give more resources to a guy like him than the guy that they're playing with right now. There's no doubt about it, and that's going to open it up for for the rest of the offense. But yeah, you want your guys playing confidently. The thing right now with the Saints is they've got issues with regards to their their 2 and 3 game losing streaks that we talked about earlier. They've already had a 3 and a 2, and to have a 3 and a 2 this early in the season, they've got to turn things around. There's no doubt about it.
Right. They got a tough one. They got a tough one this week. They play they're home against the Ravens, who are always tough before the quarterback they got and what they're doing on defense. They're always tough. And speaking of the Ravens, that segues nice into our next point. It's really hard sometimes, to get better with an in-season trade. I mean, it really doesn't happen that often in the NFL. Mikey, I just want to see what you think about that. But I think, yesterday, the Ravens picked up Roquan Smith, who I think, he's a little loud. He's had some problems with management in Chicago, but the guy's a tackling machine. He really is. I mean, he's always around the ball. He's got 607 tackles, 7 interceptions, 69 career games with the Bears. He's now playing with the Ravens, who defensively are pretty good this season. He's been a little bit unhappy. He started off this season, wasn't happy about his contract during training camp. And then, last week during media availability, he learned during an interview that the Ravens traded his buddy, popular edge rusher Robert Quinn, traded him to the Eagles. And he kind of mouthed off about that. And the reports are that he and the general manager had some words. So let me ask you, Coach, players like that who are a little fiery, really good tackle machines on the field, did the Ravens get better with that trade yesterday? I think they did.
There's no doubt they got better, Reggie. Smith has not been happy in Chicago. They've improved their defense in Baltimore by adding him, and I think he's a great scheme fit for the Ravens and what they're trying to do. And it's they're linebacker centric, and they haven't gotten the play out of the linebackers with Patrick Queen. He hasn't lived up to his draft status, nor has Josh Bynes. So Smith's not been happy, and he's been very vocal about it. And I think it's a good trade for the Ravens. They didn't give up a whole lot, and he wanted to get paid by the Bears. The Bears didn't want to pay him. So the Ravens are in a little bit, they might be just renting them for the year because they're in a little bit of a an issue in terms of they can't tag the guy because they're probably going to have to tag Lamar. We all know about what's going on with Lamar Jackson and his contract. So that's probably not an option, but they're not into him a whole lot this year. I read somewhere where the Bears are still paying
the majority
of his salary. I mean, 4.8 out of the 5.4. So I think they're only paying him $500 for the rest of the season. So, right now it's a rent situation, but I'm sure they're going to do everything in their power to sign him to a long-term contract because he leads the NFL right now in total tackles, tackles and assists. He's a tackling machine. I think he's a great fit for the Baltimore Ravens, and they need some help because they're not playing as well as they'd like to on defense, especially at the linebacker position.
Mike, when you're so fed up with a guy from an organization who said, "Guy's the 8th pick in the draft, 8, not 18, not 80, 8." Mm-hmm. He must have really worn out his welcome for them to say, "Okay, we'll take a 3 or a 5 to get you out of here." I mean, have you been in a situation where that's happened anywhere where you've coached? Have you been in a situation like that where they wanted to get rid of a guy because he was such a problem?
Well, you try to make sure they never get to be a problem. That's the thing as a head coach. You usually see signs of it, and oftentimes you're dealing with contractual things. And you as a coach, you can't talk about contractual things. I used to tell the players all the time, man, hey, I'm just like you. I want to get paid as much money as I can, and I want you to get as much as you can from the organization, because the NFL, you know what it stands for, not for long. Better get, hey, as Reggie, as you said, get your bread while you can get it.
Better get your. I tell them all the time. I see them, Mike. I see guys specifically in the offseason when there were opportunities for the club had opportunities for the guys to go make a little change for an appearance here, something there. And some guys, some of the what I call the high rent district guys, they kind of said, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do it. Guys like Matt Ryan and Tony Gonzalez, Roddy White, the high rent guys, they didn't really need to do that. But some of the guys, on the roster, 47, 48, 49, if there's an opportunity to go put $5,000 in your pocket at an event or another 10, I had guys knocking on my door looking for that bread. And you're right, it's a not for long league. It's not for long for coaches, for office guys. It's not for long. So I tell him, when you got an opportunity to go get that bread, but I'm just wondering, how does it get to that point where a guy who's as talented as he is, that you don't pay a guy? I mean, the guy's put the numbers up. He's been really, really good. He's been, they say, pound for pound, he's been a good teammate. How does it? I guess the contract sort of can lead you down that path when you don't get what you want.
Yeah, no, it's tough when you get into, when you get yourself and you get backed into a corner as a player and you get backed into a corner as a team. And that's the one thing as a coach, you can't get involved in those things. As I mentioned earlier, you want those guys to get paid as much as they can and get it while they can. And Roquan has had he's not been a bust. There's no doubt about that. He's going to get paid after this season. It's just we don't know who's going to pay him.
Right.
Can the Ravens come to an agreement with him, and can they fit him into their salary cap situation? And I'm not really sure what's going on with the Bears. They're giving up two pretty good players here in the last week of the trade window. Are they giving up, or I don't know. I mean, and who knows really what's going on in the locker room. If he's a malcontent, which he doesn't sound like it. I mean, he talked about, hey, I'm not gonna be there through the off season, but I think he kind of was holding out, but then he showed up and he's played well. He played very well for the Bears this year. So, there's always going to be a couple of those every year, and it gets magnified, as we get up to the trade deadline. And there's going to be, there's been some action over the last few days, and there'll be some leading up to it, and there'll be a surprise. There'll be one big surprise that, the so-called experts don't know is going down. It's going to just happen.
Y'all, the PR man and the coach talking ball on the Ball Father podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, let's talk a little bit about a guy you're familiar with, Coach Rivera in Washington. The Commanders, a couple of 3 weeks ago looked like they looked like one of the worst teams in the league just 3 weeks ago, and they've suddenly rejuvenated their season and so they find themselves right in the middle of the playoff chase. They've won each of their last 3 games after trailing each of the last 3 games late in the fourth quarter. They're 4-4, but they got a tough stretch coming up the next 2. They play the Vikings, who are 6-1, and then they play the undefeated Eagles. So let me ask you this: on any given Sunday, anybody can beat anybody in the National Football League. So what do you think about Coach Rivera, and what do you think their chances are moving forward as far as kind of navigating that really tough stretch, tough stretch of their schedule with a young quarterback they got going down there in D.C.?
Well, they're playing complimentary football over the last 3 weeks, and I think they've had to come from behind in all 3 of those games. Which bodes well for the confidence of the team. But it's going to be a tough road. They're in the toughest division in the NFC. There's no doubt about it. That they're 4-4, and they're 2 games out of second place and 4 games out of first place. And they may have the toughest schedule over the rest of the season, because they got to play the Giants, they got to play the Cowboys, and they got to play the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. So if they can go through that division and steal a couple of wins, get a couple wins against those other 3 teams, they got a chance, And one of the things that I kind of was thinking about last night in regards to that, the division is, has there ever been a division that all 4 teams went to the playoffs? And there hasn't, because of because there were just 2 wild card teams. Now there's 3. Right? 14. There's 14 teams playing in the playoffs. So there could potentially be a division that has all 4 teams that go to the playoffs. If the Redskins somehow get back in it and knock off the 3 division opponents above them, and they split with them 1-1, it's not out of reason to think that all 4 teams could go from the NFC East, which would be Yeah.
Sure. That'd be one.
Yeah.
Really?
But it is, it is mathematically possible to happen now that they've gone to a 17-game schedule and expanded the playoffs. But, Coach Rivera, he's a darn good coach. He's got the guys playing in this stretch that they've gone through the last 3 or 4 weeks. They're playing like they are a playoff team. They're just in the toughest division in the NFC, without a doubt.
I'm kind of impressed with you. Let's stop for a second. I'm kind of impressed that you went down in your bag and looked that up about that division. That's impressive. You I don't know how long it took you to find that out, but that. It
didn't take long, Reg. You've taught me well. You always had good info for me. So I'm trying to give you some insight too, and trying to be ahead of the curve, because everybody's talking about the NFL, every week. And I think that's something that, hey, if they can knock off a couple of the teams that are ahead of them, in the Cowboys and the Eagles, and it plays out right, we could have all 4 playing in the playoffs.
And you know what? The way it goes in the league with regards to, you say, okay, well, on paper, well, they don't play the games on paper. I mean, anything can happen. Injuries, whatever. Stuff that we don't know that's going to go down in the next couple of 3 months. Guys are going to play well, perfect example of what happens. You look in the Carolina-Atlanta game. You look like when the guy took his helmet off, quarterback took his helmet off. I mean, I'm thinking the game's over. I'm thinking, okay, Atlanta's going to win the game. I mean, Carolina's going to win the game. And, and we didn't talk about that, but while we're kind of segue a little bit, how about that? I mean, I've heard you tell our guys about the helmet when that rule came in. How do you coach that up, Mike? Once that happens, what do you do that? Do you do it that day? Do you do it the next day in the film room? How do you coach that up?
Well, you've got to make sure that the guys know beforehand that, the rules are the rules, and there's certain things that that you can't do. They've kind of changed some of the rules where now guys can, celebrate. It used to be, guys, you can't celebrate. We don't need a 15-yard penalty. After a big play. Now the league's changed the rules because they want where they allow them to do the group celebration, which I think is great. It's great for the guys. It's great for the fans.
Great for the game.
Yeah, it's good. I think that's good for the game. And who knows what's going to happen about taking the helmet off? Is that going to be something that they're going to change down the road? But as the rules are right now, man, you can't take your helmet off on the field of play. And that's something that, I'm sure the guy knew about it, but I'm sure he was so excited because it was a crucial play, huge play, crucial play to, they're in a prevent defense, and the guy scores a touchdown on a 50-something yards. It shouldn't happen, but that play shouldn't happen. But obviously the guy got too amped up and took his helmet off. And it's a learning opportunity, and it's tough because wins are hard in this league, and it is going to come down. 3 or 4 teams are going to be talking about one loss or one win throughout the 17-game season on whether or not they're going to be in the playoffs and be in that tournament at the end of the year. So it's a tough one, but you got to make it a learning opportunity for the entire team. You can't beat the guy up, that's for sure. That's not one of the things you want to do, but you want to make sure that everybody understands how it went down and how it cost them a game, and that definitely cost them a game.
Yeah, I felt bad for that young man. He's a backup quarterback. He makes obviously one of the key plays of the game. He gets excited, exuberant. Takes the helmet off and backs the kicker up. The kicker misses it, but then they get another chance, and the kicker misses it again.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Hey, that's the NFL, man. That's why everybody wants to watch it on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. And pretty soon we're going to be watching it on Tuesdays.
Hey,
it's coming, buddy.
It's why we're here talking about it. Speaking of the Panthers, one of their old guys is now, 2 weeks ago he's in Carolina. Now he's in San Francisco. We're talking about running back Christian McCaffrey, who I think is underrated and a really good ball player. He kind of got going a little bit, had the triple threat going, scored a touchdown. Scored 3 touchdowns, 1 throwing, 1 rushing, and 1 receiving. I mean, he threw the pass on that when they pitched it out to him. And he threw it. It was interesting. I saw a clip with Coach Shanahan talking about. He says they were in their offensive meetings last week, and he's screaming down the hall at I think he's screaming at one of the running backs. Coach, he said, "Hey, can Christian throw it?" And one of the guys says, "Yeah, I think I've seen him throw it. We got some video of him either in high school or college or when he's at Stanford." And he said they got the video and they looked at it and they installed it that week, which is pretty impressive. So tell me this. Coach Shanahan is known as an innovative play caller. Obviously learned from his dad that West Coast offense how they run. Can the Niners get hot down the stretch, playing in the division they play in, and get hot and get to the tournament?
Oh, absolutely they can. And I think they helped their team these last 2 weeks with acquiring McCaffrey, and luckily for the 49ers, the Panthers have are going through a fire sale. They're trying to get as many draft picks as they can, and he'll be a big, and has been and will be a big jolt to their offense. Reggie, if you're playing chess, and I know you like to play chess, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's cerebral. You like to play it. I know that, but if you were playing chess, what's the most important piece on the board?
Well, that's why I'm not good at it. I'm thinking it's your queen.
Absolutely, it's your queen, right? Because he can move diagonally, horizontally.
Right.
He's the most flexible piece on the chessboard.
Yep.
And that's what a guy like McCaffrey is to a football team. You can move this guy around and put him in different positions. Throw him the ball, let him throw, let him pass the ball occasionally, let him run the ball. You saw how they've already integrated him into their offense over the last 2 weeks. Right. He can create potential explosive plays in so many different ways. That's what makes him so good, and they create mismatches and they can get tells. What I mean by tells is they can line them up in different areas on the offensive formation, and the quarterback knows it becomes easy because they know what defense they're in and they know how they're trying to defend it. So he's a mismatch guy, and he can line up anywhere, and I think you're going to see them to continue to do it. Here's the point that I think everybody needs to take a warning on. He needs to stay healthy. He's had some issues. This isn't the guy that you want carrying the ball like Derrick Henry, who we were talking about earlier. You can't feed this guy 30 times a game. You can't feed him, 32 times a game. You got to pick your spots when you're gonna use him. And he's so dynamic and he's so versatile that you get 15 touches out of him, and that may be 10 to 15 touches out of him to keep him healthy, because it's a long season. He's not a big, strong, typical running back.
Right.
And so they got to be careful. It's going to be a balancing act for Coach Shanahan and his staff in terms of how many touches do they want to get him in a game, so that come weeks 14, 15, 16, he's fresh and he hasn't been injured, because he's had the injury bug there in Carolina.
I think that's a great point. You're right. He's kind of he reminds me a little bit of a track guy. He's not Derrick Henry big. He's not as tall as Derrick. He's nowhere near as thick as Derrick is. But you're right. You've got to be a little bit judicious with how you use him. And if you do that, sort of let him touch it for 12. Like, you're right. You got a chance. Because we got a couple of minutes before we have to say goodbye here to our group here. I just want to ask you a couple of things about a couple, just 2 guys that you've seen, and you're one guy you were very familiar with. Are you a little surprised that, as accomplished as Matt Ryan is, We drafted him, third overall in 2008. He's gone on to throw, have a great career, league MVP. Were you surprised? We're gonna talk about this last week. We did this. We didn't have a show. Were you a little surprised about what's happened and how much he struggled down in Indianapolis with what's going on now? He's hurt. He's gonna be out for a while. Were you a little surprised at how much he struggled early, Coach, when he got down there?
No, let me say this. Matt Ryan, in my opinion, is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's no doubt about it. He's had a great career. It's every organization is a different situation.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. He's not playing in front of or behind a very good offensive line, and I think the Colts had that reinforced with the game this past week. So they've made a decision, and I don't know what drove the decision. It sounds like to me it might be financial. He's hurt right now. He's going to be out for a while. I mean, Matt's as tough as they come. There's not a guy he is a tough guy in terms of sitting in the pocket and taking the hits, but it's a shame that he is injured, and they've made a decision, and I think a lot of it has to do with salary cap, guaranteed money, all of the things that fans don't always take into consideration. And I think it's a decision that was an organizational decision. I still think Matt Ryan has gas in the tank and can be a very successul quarterback in the NFL. I'm a little biased though, Reg. We both are, because we love Matt Ryan, and we love what he did for the city of Atlanta. We love what he did for the Atlanta Falcons organization throughout his career there. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens down the road. But right now, Matt needs to get healthy. I saw him on the sideline in the game past week. He's helping, to sit and talking, with the other quarterbacks, so he's still an integral part, and that's the way Matt Ryan is. He's going to do everything he can to help his team, because he's one of the greatest teammates that I've ever been around.
Just going to finish up here with the guy who's throwing the ball in Buffalo. I still think as good as he's playing, and as good as they're playing as a team, I still think he's underrated, and I still think that he doesn't get nearly the amount of attention that some of the other quarterbacks get. I mean, he should be in the conversation. Talking about Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Bills, he should be in the conversation of probably the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, because he's playing out of his mind right now. He really is. He's tough. He can run. He's big. He's got a big arm. He's got, he's throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs. I mean, and his teammates love him. Why don't you think he gets the attention that he's talked about like some of the other guys are?
Well, he's not in a big media market. That's one thing.
Okay.
Buffalo's up there, way up there in Canada. way up there. And I think that they would rather talk about the Bills Mafia than they would about the quarterback. The quarterback he's a fantastic player. He's a guy that would be very difficult if I was back coaching and coaching defense. He would be very difficult to put together a game plan to try to stop him. I mean, did you see when he took off and ran the ball this past week? On Sunday night? I mean, he's big and strong, and I know that they probably wince every time he takes off and runs, because he doesn't always go down.
Right.
You hold your breath every time he does it, but he's got a rifle. He's very accurate in terms of placing the ball. And the Buffalo Bills, they are definitely one of the top teams. If you had to say right now who's going to be in the Super Bowl, who's going from the NFC right now, who would you say, Reg?
Philadelphia Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles. Who's going from the AFC?
Buffalo Bills. That's been my pick from the outset. I was with some guys the other day. We were about to go hit that golf ball, and we were talking. And it's one guy who was talking about. He says, "Well, I think it's really early, but I think," he says, I think Minnesota's going." I said, "That's a little early." I said, I like what they're doing. I like the quarterback. I like the coach. I like what they're doing. It's a little early. I think it's a little early for them. Buffalo has been there. This guy's gotten his heart broken a couple of years in Kansas City. He probably should have gotten to go last year, but what for a couple of tough calls down the stretch. I mean, playoffs the last 2 or 3 years, Josh Allen has played as good as anybody playing football. Okay, now defensively, I know you'll love this to show you how much I was paying attention on Sunday. They're not blitzing very much at all. They're getting home with that. They got some big guys in the middle. The one guy's named Settle, I think is his name. They got a guy named Oliver in the middle playing.
Oliver, yep.
He's playing good. They got Jordan Poole playing safety, who will take your head off. I mean, they're playing with 4 guys who they were getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback on Sunday, rushing 4. Leslie Frazier's as good as there is coordinating defenses, and he's got some help because the head coach is a defensive-minded guy too. Made his bones as a defensive coordinator like you did. He was doing it in Carolina. You did it in Jacksonville. But I like what they're doing. I like the quarterback. I like play good. He ain't turning it over, and they're playing good defense, and they're on the plus side of the give-take chart. That's a formula and they can run it. And they can run it.
Yeah, no, they're one of the most complete teams in the National Football League right now, without a doubt. And I think you're going to see some separation over the next 4 or 5 weeks in the league.
Sure.
And that can change very quickly though, with 1 or 2 injuries on at certain positions at certain teams. It just depends on how much depth they have. And hey, it's not a sprint. The NFL season's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and it tests you both physically and mentally. And that to me is what Buffalo seems to have the depth, and they seem to have the mentality to go all the way. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I'm not going to make a prediction, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're not the AFC champs, and they're playing in the Super Bowl. There's a lot of football to be played. We're sitting here at the 1st of November. We're getting ready to get on the downhill side of the NFL season. Yeah. And as you know, the last quarter, now that it's 17 games, the last 5 weeks of the season, it's going to be exciting. And I'm so excited about having the opportunity to chop it up with you on Tuesdays after each weekend.
Coach, I'm gonna let you go get back to your firewood, but I got one other one for you. I had a guy email me the other day, said something really ridiculous about Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott. The guy says, I think Cooper Rush is better than Dak Prescott, and I think he should be playing. I said, you're on crack. What are you talking about? I said, what are you talking about? You kidding me, really? So, just tell me your thoughts about it. I mean, Cooper Rush was a nice story for a month, but he ain't Dak Prescott.
No, he's not Dak Prescott. They've got different skill sets. They've got completely different skill sets. He did a great job and was a great placeholder. And the Cowboys organization, the coaching staff did a great job putting him in positions where he could be successful.
Right.
But it's a good problem to have. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy at all. But they know that if something were to happen and he gets dinged up again this season, that they can go out and win games with Cooper Rush. And you know how it is. Oftentimes in a lot of cities across the NFL, the most popular guy is the backup quarterback. Yeah. In the toughest position to play is the starting quarterback. So, I agree with you wholeheartedly that there's no controversy going on in Dallas, nor should there be.
Well, listen, I'm always thrilled to be on the phone with you to talk about talking ball on the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the Ball Father podcast. Coach, we're gonna let you go get to your firewood. I'm gonna go get that little white ball today. I got an invitation to go hit that little white ball. So I'm nowhere near as good as you are, but I'm gonna go out there and hit it.
Yep, hey, Reg, go hit them far and straight and not too often.
I like it. I like that. Listen, we're gonna let you go. You go back to go get to your firewood. Give Miss Julie my best, and we'll reconvene. We'll reconvene next week and talk a little bit more ball. And on the PR man, the coach talking ball for the podcast presented by Sportskeeda. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll check in with you later on, and we'll figure this thing out and get it going.
Yeah, look forward to chopping it up again next week.
All right, Coach. Have a good day, man. Take care, man.
Okay.
All right.